Hey everybody, now we're going to do a review of a movie, an old movie that I picked out with Audrey Hepburn and George Pepperdine.
Peppered.
Just kidding. Papard.
George Peppered.
George Papard.
So what was peppered about
Martin
George?
Balsam, Patricia Neal, and Mickey Rooney.
Martin Balsack.
Balsam! B-A-L-S-A-M! Jesus, Marco.
Now, Safi.
And Buddy Epson.
Before we get into the story, I will say the acting was really good, and in particular, who was the Asian guy, because he did a really good job.
That's Martin Balsam.
No, but who's the Asian guy?
Oh, that's
he
Mickey
did a really
Rooney,
good job.
And he's not Asian at all.
Oh, really? I couldn't tell. I'm just kidding.
That really was.
Really?
This is the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. It was made in the 60s. Anyway, I don't know where it takes place. Marco won't look it up.
You don't know where the movie takes place?
It takes place in New York City.
Oh, really?
Where was Sing Sing? And when did it close?
I don't know. Who cares?
I asked you to look it up.
That's not the story. The story is all the other stuff. This movie, basically, I don't know why Safi's not getting into the plot. She's too busy worrying about George Peppered and who's that Asian guy. I would say that this movie is just one big PSA on what feminism will end up doing to women. Because, this movie's just, it's also like a PSA on, do not interact with these types of women in this movie. Because this woman, this Holly girl, this character, she is probably one of the worst female characters in film history. And not in terms of, being a good or bad character, but being, a good or bad person. She is probably one of the worst types of people. She has all the hallmarks of modern-day feminazi women. The types that have their, the OnlyFans accounts with all the subscriptions on there, and the types, you know who this person is. She's a terrible person. She's awful. She's so obnoxious. She's just the worst. We're going to be going through the story, and it's just every single thing that she does is just a demonstration of, how bad feminism will make women in the future, which it did. You saw what it did to women, Safi. Right? That's what this movie is.
I think she's still a likable character, except when
she's not likable at all.
Throws the cat out of the cab and left in a raging rainstorm.
At a certain point, I wanted George Peppered to push Holly in front of a bus and just see her get run over. Because, her character, I just hate her. I hate everything about her. She's the worst. She's just everything that is wrong with women nowadays. She is just everything that, is what's wrong with feminism, and everything that is what's wrong with, this modern-day mentality of I'm strong and independent because I'm a wild woman. And it's
she called herself a wild thing.
Yeah, a wild thing. Not even a wild woman. A wild thing. And, yeah. But in all fairness, the movie is about, basically, going against that and being anti-feminism. Because by the end of the movie, he changes her, which I think is a very dangerous thing because, you see a lot of these movies where it's all about a woman changing a man and changing, a bad man, I can change him.
But he wasn't a bad person.
But in this case, it's a man changing a bad woman. And I feel it's a good message and it's a good story, but that's just not what it's like at all. The people like her, they're just terrible, awful people. They don't deserve anything. They deserve to be single old cat ladies who become homeless and get run over by a bus. So.
Marco.
What?
Terrible.
What? Fuck this bitch. This character sucks. Like, she sucks. Like, how could you idolize this character? Because she has a fashion sense? Because she's Audrey Hepburn? So what? That's the character is awful. This character is atrocious. She's the worst. She is like the turd in the punch bowl. Safi, are you gonna talk about the movie?
I was trying to right myself, but anyway.
You trying to calm down? What do you?
I don't know. It's hard for me to. She's just to me. She's like. She has a soul, and she has good about her.
Yeah, she has a dirty soul.
Marco, can you stop it? I'm trying to talk, and but she doesn't want to be that way. She wants to be where she doesn't. She's disengaged and unattached, and from everything and everybody. Actually, she's just pretending to be something that she really isn't. And, I mean, here we go. Well, she's, at first glance, she's like this party girl who, men are chasing. This one guy is bothering her. And he always comes in after her when she comes into her apartment because you have to buzz in. She never remembers her key. She keeps losing her key, and the apartment guy, the super, I guess it would be the super, who's played by Mickey Rooney. This is another thing I really don't like about the movie. I guess because he's such a goofball. He's played so many different roles, and this was a weird role they wanted him to play. They could have had somebody who was really Japanese if they wanted to do instead of him, because I don't exactly know what he was supposed to serve as, but he would come out of his. They would make a lot of noise because the guy would be yelling at Audrey Hepburn and saying, please come with me, let's go together, let's be together, or things like that, and he'd make a lot of noise, and it was late at night. And the Japanese guy, who's not Japanese, but made up to look like that with glasses and fake teeth, would come out and yell and say he's going to call the police. And why can't she remember to bring her key? Because he has to buzz her in. And because it won't open. It's a security thing. So she presents herself as this party girl. And then this one time she, how do they even meet? She meets George Papard. He's a new neighbor. He's just moved in, and he's a writer who's actually written a book and had it published. And it's printed on a card catalog in the library. And it's in the bookstore, I guess. So that's all the setup for the story of Martin Balsam is, I guess, her agent, and then and I don't know why I didn't get that, and then he I guess just meets him through her. So anyway, go ahead, Marco.
Well,
that's the basic setup. And she has a cat. It's a beautiful orange cat, and she doesn't even name it.
No.
Which is another disengagement thing. But I know she loves the cat.
This woman is a whore. She is a straight up whore. She is meant for the streets. And she's
Marco's being a little bit.
No, I'm not.
I think he is.
No, I'm not.
Well,
Safi.
What is he doing?
Safi is
Why don't
not.
You explain that.
He is also a whore. He's a man whore, and he has a decorator woman, and
he calls her his decorator. That is a cover for her and her husband.
Yeah.
She is his.
But she also does decorate. She also decorates his apartment. She also does that. She also does that, Safi.
Well, I guess that's how they met.
But he is a man whore. But the thing is that at least he's not Holly. Okay? Right, Safi? Because the whole movie is like him, and he's like realizing that what he did was wrong, and what she's doing is even more wrong because she's a whore. And she's a drug dealer. She's dirty. She's gross. I mean, you can just imagine what Holly smells like. I mean, there's a reason why she sprays herself with so much perfume. Right, Safi?
I think the picture that you're painting of her is not what people would say if they watched.
Yeah, that's because it's Audrey Hepburn, and so they're picturing her in real life and not the character in the movie. But when you picture the character in the movie, you'd think, well, she probably smells like canned cat food. Right, Safi?
I don't know. It's weird because it looked like at first she only gave the cat milk.
Yeah.
It's about the worst thing you can give a cat, because it's not a kitten anymore, it's a cat, and they don't do well with milk products. And it looked like this all she fed it was a bowl of milk. But then near the end is when I saw her give him a can of cat food. It was really quick, but that's beside the point. So anyway, the decorator is played by Patricia Neal, who's a very famous Oscar-winning, Emmy-winning probably actress, and I think she's married, and she gets with George Papard, and she's his decorator too. So maybe that's how they met. I thought she belonged to It was confusing at first. I thought she was the person, but she's paying him, so that's not right. So anyway, she pays him like $300 every week to have sex with her, and they to have some kind of pretend relationship. And so she's in the picture too. So anyway, one night...
Hey, you're a little obsessed with her.
No, I'm just trying to describe if you not familiar with her.
Well, let's also talk about, you really didn't like all the smoking in the movie.
No, I couldn't stand it. They were smoking, all of them. Every character in the movie had to smoke. And I couldn't stand it. I can't even imagine what that would be like. Your apartment, your clothes, everything. I mean, but it didn't matter. You know why? Because they all smoked. Yeah. So nobody would notice it.
And what ended up happening with George Papard?
He died of lung cancer. He had to have part of his lung removed.
He died of pneumonia, but he also had lung cancer. So
it didn't help.
Yeah, well, that contributed probably. So that's what happens.
And actually, she died of cancer too.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was lung cancer. I think it was something else, a different kind.
It was I don't know. I can't remember.
I mean, every second they were constantly pulling out a cigarette.
Yeah.
It drove me nuts. I just can't even imagine. But since they all smoked, it didn't matter.
I didn't even really notice the smoking.
No, I did.
I noticed all the drinking. Like these people, they're so obsessed with alcohol. It's kind of gross.
Yeah, it was cocktail hour constantly.
Yeah.
And they even had one day, but it was kind of a nice day when they were George Papard and Audrey Hepburn were
Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn. They had champagne at breakfast.
Yeah.
So anyway, another character who comes into the story. Talk about him.
Well, the reason why I wanted to bring up the drinking is because I think it's so funny that nowadays there's this whole thing about they don't really put smoking in movies anymore, but it's
more than they did though. They're doing it more nowadays than they had.
Yeah, but all the people who complain about that, it's like, why don't you complain about all the drinking in movies? Why are you... So promoting alcohol is okay, but promoting cigarettes isn't? That's kind of stupid. Alcohol is just as harmful as cigarettes. So, I don't understand that logic. That would be like saying, like, it's wrong to kill someone by strangling them, but it's okay to kill someone with a knife, right?
Nah,
Right?
yeah, I guess. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just think that was the thing. Those parties, because she was a party girl, and one night she even one night she even has a party in her apartment. She doesn't even have the money to pay for all the alcohol. I don't even know what happened with that. But she knows who all the richest men are who show up to the party. And one is a Brazilian rancher named Jose, which is kind of an odd name because that's more of like a Mexican name. That's not Brazilian. Brazilian is Portuguese, and it's just that guy. That would be more of a different kind of name. It's just not right. That's like down in Juarez, Mexico, or something. This isn't. He was like a Brazilian.
I thought that Jose was a Japanese name.
No, it's not a Japanese name.
I'm just kidding, Safi.
No, anyway, he has a ranch in Brazil. Was it in Rio? I don't know, but and then you have this other guy. I wrote his name down, but she knows who he is. He's a very famous, wealthy guy. But something happened. One thing I didn't like, it's just a little thing, but whenever they would show a newspaper article or something, a letter, a telegram, whatever, they would show it for 2 seconds, and you didn't have time to read it. I mean, you'd have to go rewind the movie back several times to get the contents of whatever it was you're looking at. And something happened. She had her eye on this American rich guy who was really gross and ugly, and he was overweight.
He's ugly because he's overweight.
Well, he had this
basically
red hair.
Well, yeah, he kind of
bangs on his forehead.
Yeah, it kind of looks like Truman Capote a little bit, right?
And this is based on a book by Truman Capote, which really surprised me. I had no idea. And he did something wrong, and he lost all his money. And I don't know if he got in trouble with the law. And also, another thing is the Brazilian rancher was, the super Mickey Rooney got really mad because the party got really, really loud, and he did call the cops. And you could hear the sirens, and the Brazilian rancher, he's does not want to be involved with the law. So he goes with George Papardi. He goes with him because has to take him. Because he's from out of the country, doesn't know where to go. But he wants to leave the apartment. And they even go through the window. So he is going to evade the law.
I have looked up Jose.
Okay.
It says Jose is a boy's name of Brazilian and Portuguese origin.
That's hard to believe. I can't, but it just doesn't sound like it. But that's okay, it doesn't matter. It's just a tiny thing.
The name of Holly is from a whore origin.
Marco.
What?
Her name is Holly Golightly, but in real life it was something else.
It was Lula Mae.
Lula Mae Golightly is her married name, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And that will be another character who's added in for not a very long time.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've seen that the Brazilian rancher, I don't know why he wants to avoid the law. So that will be coming up later, and I really didn't understand what was going on there. But maybe Marco did. Maybe he had a better understanding. And then the other guy, the other rich guy, something happened with him, and he lost all his money, so she was instantly not interested in him. She thought she was going to marry him. She had it all planned out. And then she decided she's going to marry the Brazilian rancher.
Yeah, well, number one, she is a whore. And so she's basically all concerned with money. And it's this weird kind of feminist thing.
Well, it's like a sugar daddy.
This feminist character where, she wants to be strong and independent, but then she's really not independent because all she does is take men's money.
Yeah, well, for example, she does this thing where she goes and visits this mafia guy who says he's not associated with the mafia, but he really seems like a mafia character when she goes to see him. But she has to see them, and I don't know how she met him, but she sees him every Thursday for an hour. She sits and talks with him, and he talks about the weather and whatever, but just for an hour, and they have it all, and they show it. And they show all these people meeting with their relatives at Sing Sing. They're sitting at little desks. There's no glass between them. In the place, a whole room full, and they get to sit there for an hour, and then they go. And she gets, every time she does it, she gets $100 from him.
Yeah, there's some sort of a drug thing going on, which I didn't really understand.
I didn't either.
And I felt like that was a big problem with this movie, was the whole, like, we can't really show her being a whore. We can't really tell, like, what she's doing with the drugs and everything. So we're just going to imply everything. We're just going to say that, like, she gets $50 to go to the powder room, which is just, prostitution money. And, so I didn't really understand.
I didn't either. And there was something, like I said, about the weather.
Yeah.
When they said it at when they show her meeting with him, and at the end, because she brings George Papard, and because they're best friends, but he's in love with her, but she probably is in love with him. She of course does not want to admit it, doesn't have any money. But anyway, at the end, she goes, "Oh, I forgot. What's the weather today?" And when she did that, I think she was being honest, but he said, "Oh, haha, it doesn't matter. It's blah blah blah." And I was thinking that's some kind of code for something. And now I'm wondering.
It is, Safi. That was the whole point.
I thought it was
That's why she was arrested at the end, and she was going to be convicted.
But of what?
Of doing something with drugs. I don't know. I mean, they didn't explain it. They just implied it.
I thought it was the Brazilian guy that was involved in the drugs.
She was. She was a whore and a drug dealer. She's double terrible. And, not the good kind of drugs either. Probably the bad kinds.
I don't know.
So, and by the way, Safi, we should say that, like, Ohio did legalize marijuana.
I know, nobody's talking about his abortion.
Thankfully. Because we both voted absentee, as we always do.
And it's a better way of knowing what everything is to vote for, and you can look up stuff.
Because, like, if it would be really hard to memorize these people and then go there and just have everything, like, that person, like, that would be really difficult. It's much better to vote where you have a computer at hand and you can look things up.
Some people don't have that opportunity.
And we both voted for marijuana. Because that's just ridiculous.
I thought it was legal. They had the CBD. We have stores of CBD.
Yeah.
A few blocks away. So I don't understand that. The health food store has CBD. Kroger has CBD.
So Safi will be smoking a joint.
No, I won't.
Why?
Does not. No.
What?
Did that a million years ago. And doesn't agree with me.
What happened, Safi?
I passed out. Never again.
Because you took a bite of a pot brownie and you passed out
from a million years ago.
A single bite.
Really, like when I was in my early 20s.
So.
I didn't even eat the whole thing. I had a bite, and I passed out cold.
Well, so in this story, we should just, like, keep on talking about why Holly is bad.
Well, why don't we just talk about the story?
Well, we are. And so, like, there's this whole day where she's going out with George Papard. And they're doing things that they've never done before. And this is how trashy and gross this girl is. She's like, I used to like to steal stuff from this one store all the time. Is it like 10 to 1? Is that what the store's called?
It's a dime store.
I thought that was a really cool store.
They call it the 5 and 10, but it was the dime store.
I liked that store. It was
it was fun. My dime
cool
stores
store.
were cool.
And she's like,
I
used to steal things all the time from this store to keep things interesting. Is that what she said, to keep things spicy or something? Like, I don't know.
Something like that.
And he's like, I've never done that before. And she's like, oh, now you have to do it. Ah, ha, ha, ha. And I sound like a witch, too.
So
right,
they
Safi?
have a detective in the store. They also have the people, the other customers. They also have the shop clerks. And the way they're going around, she touches everything in a certain way.
Very suspicious.
She has this really cool hat.
Well, I think it's an ugly hat.
Well, it's a retro because it's this back in the 60s. And
really?
It's not a bucket hat. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's like the top hat without the rim. And it's furry, and it's a kind of a cold day.
It looks like an old woman's hat.
Now that was just the style of people like her, like socialites, flashy girls dressing up in really.
But
cool
how could it be flashy if it doesn't show off your hairstyle?
I don't know, but anyway, she put it over. Do you remember? I'm sure. You could get goldfish in a bowl. They had goldfish in a bowl. So they had like 25 of those on the shelves and for sale, and probably for a few dollars. And she put the hat over it, but it doesn't go all the way over, and then she'd use part of her coat to hide it. There's just no way they're going to leave the store with a fish bowl with fish. It's just there's water in it. It's bulky. So they continue to walk around, and this was a neat part, because this is one thing I like about older movies, especially when you're a reseller who sells retro goods, vintage goods, which I do, and one of the things I sell. And they had when we just had Halloween too, a whole area of Halloween masks. Now they're not the flashy, really cool kinds of today. They're rubbery and they're really ornate, but they cost a fortune, 40, 50, 60 plus. Like the haunted mask, they had that, and Michael Myers, all that. These were these like plastic, colorful plastic face masks.
And in fact, they did have the costume that the young Michael wore in the remake. The clown outfit and the clown mask. They did have that in the display window. So that was the actual outfit that they were inspired by to use in the remake.
So it was really, I really loved that. And so they're very small masks. They're for a child.
They did that a lot back then, where they showed stuff like that, but they can't really do that now because they don't have stores like that anymore.
No, there's no more dime store. It's Walmart.
Yeah.
Or Target. And they used to have Kmart, but that's gone.
But here's the confusing part. Did all the weird people who shopped at dime stores, are they the ones who shop at Walmart? Like an Indian girl with a mustache, an old woman who runs into Safi with her cart. Like, did they used to shop at dime stores? Like, was it just like a natural thing where they moved to Walmart instead?
It was a great place for a kid to go if they wanted to get a present for their parents at a really small price. They were very cheap, but the goods were nice. And I have all kinds of stuff for sale. Not all kinds, because I've sold stuff, but some of it's just not going to sell. But it was there. I remember stuff like that was there, and that was for sale in dime stores. And now they're vintage, and people want to buy stuff like that. But these masks were really neat. But they were very simple, very small. So she got a cat mask, and he had a dog mask, and they just put them on their faces. They didn't even hide them.
Yeah.
They walked out of the store with wearing them.
So that's another example of how trash this woman is. She likes to steal things for fun. And that's another thing where it's like, you know, the idea of being strong and independent and wild and crazy is to go to a store and steal something. You know, like, that's just, it's ridiculous. It's like, but it's good because it teaches you, like, this is what they actually think. They think that this is a good thing to do. They think that, you know, and in fact, they did have a good monologue at the end where he says that she doesn't want to be caged up by a man, but she's put herself in her own cage.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's exactly what these feminazis do. They put themselves in cages. And honestly, like, they deserve to be in cages. Right, Safi?
Oh, Marco.
Especially Holly.
So anyway, and they run out of the store, and that's it. And they continue, and then they, well, let's see. Well, they do all kinds of stuff. But anyway, he goes home, and I don't know if when it happened, but his decorator friend is really nervous, and she's like hiding, and she's running up to his apartment, and she thinks, I think she said Bill or whatever. I think it's her husband. He's having somebody follow me, and he's been everywhere I've been, all the time. And so she shows him out the window, and this guy and his buddy Epson, and you know who that is? The Beverly Hillbillies, Jeb. In case you don't know.
It's Jed.
Jed.
Anyway. It's not Jeb Bush.
Okay, Marco.
Right, Safi?
Yeah. So anyway, so he looks out the window and he sees him. So he says, I'll take care of it. And so he goes out there and he just starts wandering all over New York City, and he follows him. And he finally goes to, I guess, Central Park or whatever, and sits at a bench, and the guy comes up beside him. And so it is not somebody who is chasing after Patricia Neal. He wants to know about Holly. And George Parr's like, what? So apparently this guy is from Texas, and what is he? He's a rancher too?
He's her wife.
He's her
Or
husband.
he's her husband. Well, he was her husband.
He was her husband. They were, he married her when she was 14. And she and her brother were very poor, and she has a different name. What is it?
Lula May. Safi, do we need to go through every single little detail of the movie?
Well,
or can we go through it a little faster?
So anyway, he's come back to get her because her brother's coming home from the army, and she should be there. And also her children are there, but they're not really her children. I didn't get that part. So go ahead.
They were another woman's children.
That's still weird.
No, it's not. And so, you know, the movie was very entertaining.
And he was a good character.
It was a very it was a very rich movie. It's a movie that leaves you feeling full and satisfied. You know, the only trouble is that how many times can you really watch this movie? Because the character of Holly is so awful and so unlikable and evil, it is really hard to, like, you know, want to watch this movie more than once. Because most of the movie is just showing why she's so bad. Like, every single scene you can point something out of, like, see, this is exactly what we've been talking about with these modern women. And, you know, it doesn't seem like Safi has agreed with that, though. She hasn't really said anything to confirm it.
I just thought she was trying to deny being who she is.
Well, that's exactly what these women do nowadays. They want to pretend like they're not women. They don't want to fulfill the gender roles, quote unquote. But then what are they fulfilling? They're just fulfilling, like, everything that she's doing in this movie, where all she cares about is money, and all she cares about is being strong and independent and standing in front of the Tiffany store and drinking alcohol and smoking all the time. And it's like the life that she has is really not a life. It's basically like a... She's basically like a... Like, you know how they say man-child? Like, she's basically like a woman-child. Where she's just stuck being like this immature, like, party person. But she's worse than a party person because party people aren't whores. And party people aren't drug dealers, and they're not, like, really garbage people like her. So, that's the difference. But I thought it was really good. It's hard to really say much more about it, because it's like, yeah, it was really good. Right? Like,
yeah, I just wanted to say that Jeb was eating a box of Cracker Jacks.
Safi, it's not Jeb Bush.
Jed was eating a box of Cracker Jacks when he was talking to George Papard. And he pulled out the prize and he gave it to George Papard because he didn't want it.
George W. Peppard and Jeb Clampett.
It was a ring. And that was the prize. And so that one day when they did the mask and everything, they went to Tiffany.
Now, this is another hilarious thing, is that Holly says, nothing bad can ever happen to you in a Tiffany's.
And it's like, Tiffany's.
Well, what about if you get robbed at a Tiffany's, sweetie? Because guess what? Tiffany's has been robbed 5 times. 1958, before Tiffany's had shatterproof windows, a couple of men smashed a window and took $163,000 in jewels. 1965, a woman somehow managed to swap a $7,500 diamond she was wearing for a store-owned one worth $19,800. So, you know, I something bad can happen in Tiffany's, sweetie. Right?
Well, I guess that hadn't happened when the story was written or whatever, but they want to... He just got paid for a new story. And, or maybe it's at the first chapter of a book. I wasn't sure about that. I think that sounded like a chapter of a book.
There was another weird thing where he was going to write a story about her called My Friend, but they never followed up on that and showed, like, if he wrote the story or if that was the story that got him the money.
Yeah, he wrote something for it was for a magazine, wasn't it? Like New Yorker.
Yeah, but
or
like
another magazine.
What was
Vanity Fair, maybe?
What was the story or anything? Like, they didn't even go into that at all.
And he got a check. And so he had a check with him, and so they couldn't use the check at Tiffany's. So all he had was $10. And so they asked the store guy, who is another famous actor, but I don't know his name, I apologize, who's been a character actor in a lot of movies and TV shows. And he said, well, and they shows him some kind of, God, what was it? Some kind of brooch.
A letter or a phone dialer?
Yeah, I didn't get... Oh, I see. Because, you know, they have dial phone, rotary phones.
But did they have phone dialers like that? Like, why would they want to use that?
It's just some stupid
That's stupid.
thing. And it was sterling silver, and it had a little diamond. And they said, no, we don't need that. And then he brought out this Cracker Jack ring, and he said, can I get this engraved for $10? And he said, okay. And so
honestly,
that became to be very important in the end.
Well, honestly, Safi, the only engagement ring that Holly Golightly ever would deserve is a Cracker Jack box ring. Honestly. Don't you agree? Someone like her, she doesn't deserve a real ring.
He can't afford, unless he gets a multi-million-dollar ring or a check to buy any big ring.
Well, she doesn't deserve a real ring. That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, I know.
When people talk, you're supposed to respond to what they're saying and not, like, be a space cadet that's, like, not really paying attention.
I don't know if I agree with that or not.
Why? She's a whore. Now, Safi, is there anything... Oh, well, I guess we should get to the end. The ending is where, number one, like, there's a scene where her brother has been killed in a Jeep accident, which is pretty hilarious because...
No, it's not.
It's
the only person she really cared about and wasn't afraid to tell anyone.
That's her fucking problem. She's a whore.
Marco.
So,
and she tears her apartment up.
It's funny because I knew it was going to happen. It was very predictable that, like, obviously he's not going to return from the war. Like, that never happens in, like, a movie or a story, like, hardly at all. Like, in a lot of these dramas, you always have something like that. Like, A League of Their Own. Remember A League of Their Own, where one of the women, she finds out that her husband was killed, and then another woman... She thinks that her husband has been killed, but then he's there. And it was a surprise. And it's like, so I was really not surprised by that. But she's, like, destroying her apartment, and she also, like, hurts her cat. Like, she...
Yeah, and the cat is like, this is a trained cat. I mean, I don't know. I didn't like that. I just...
And at the end of the movie...
That was kind of abusive.
She was abusive because she's a whore. She's, abusive all the time because she's taking advantage of people for their money. And so,
the Brazilian guy is with her. She gets the telegram.
She ends up wanting to marry the Brazilian guy because he has money. And, that's all that she cares about.
But she has to move to Rio.
And so, but then she's going to get indicted... And she wants to go to Brazil anyway so that she can, flee the country, and which is a terrible idea, of course. But, with her, it's like this is another thing with, like, feminism, is that, women don't want to have any consequences for their actions. They want to be able to just do whatever they want and not face any sort of consequence for anything that they do. Because they've been worshipped and they've been taught their whole lives that, men will just give them their money and, do all these things for them and they won't have to work for it or do anything. And it's true. She's a whore, Safi. Okay. And so it's like she doesn't think that she can have any consequences for anything she does. So she wants to leave the country, and he says, well, fuck you, George Peppard. He says, fuck you. And he's going to leave her.
Because he's in love with her. He said, why don't you marry me?
Yeah.
Because I love you.
Grow up and marry him, idiot. But she's like, no.
Didn't he say that he thought she loved him too? I can't remember.
I think so.
But he did say he loved her. He wanted to marry her, and he really did love her.
And she even throws the cat out the window and abandons it. And that
taxi cab.
That was the point where I was going to say, like, you know what? If they don't go back and get the cat, I'm not giving this movie a good grade.
Yeah, I was very disturbed by that, because even the cat's trained for the movie. But no, that's still, it's pouring. It's really pouring out. And it's raining. The cat's all wet and cold. It's scared. And I'm just like, oh my God. How could she have done that?
And so he stops the car and he says, fuck you. And he goes to get the cat. And then she grows up magically in a matter of seconds.
At the ring, because he threw the ring at her.
Yeah,
he threw the little box at her, and she opens it up, and it's the Cracker Jack ring. And what happened was it had been engraved at Tiffany's, and she put it on her finger, and I could never see what it said. Did it have her initials on it? Did it say I love you? Because it's a really tiny ring. You really couldn't put much on it. And so she put it on her finger, and it kind of like gave her some realization about what was going on.
Well, it made her realize that all she deserved was a Cracker Jack ring, because she's that trash of a person. So then she goes back and they have their little happy ending, but
they look for the cat, and she's really upset because she thinks, oh my God, what's happened to it? And it was hiding in a wooden box.
So they do have the happy ending, which was good because, nowadays they would have ended it where she gets to run off and do whatever she wants and not face any consequences, like Kim in Better Call Saul, where she got to run off and not face any consequences because she's a woman. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't anything like that. We don't know what happens. We never got the whole story on any of that stuff. It's like a sketch, and where you just don't know. Maybe you don't care.
So I would say the main issue with this movie, but after Safi's painstakingly gone through every detail for no reason,
well, I don't think a lot of people have seen this movie as of late.
Well, that's because nowadays, for some reason, people call this movie a chick flick, which I think is just another bizarre, this just shows that the people who watch this movie, they really don't pay attention to what's going on. They just pay attention to, look, it's Audrey Hepburn, and she's wearing pretty clothes, and she looks really good.
Yeah, she has some really cool clothes.
You know what she smells like, though, that character.
Really looks great in them. Really cool.
I didn't, because she looks so skinny. She looks like a concentration camp survivor.
Because she was in World War II. Don't you understand?
I know that, but that is the character. I'm talking about the character, Safi. They make a point to say that the character needs to eat a sandwich.
Yeah, they do. They say that
and
a few times.
I do not think that she looks that good in the clothes because she looks like she's anorexic, which she was. And I'm sorry, but that's just that affects the character. And but they really don't pay attention to it because how could you say this is a chick flick when the chick is awful and when the flick is really like an anti-feminism movie? It's basically like the ultimate anti-feminism movie I probably have ever seen because it completely destroys every single aspect of feminism completely. Right, Safi?
I guess.
Well, what would you say it does? Isn't that the story of the movie?
It's just that it's a irony and a bunch of contradictions.
Really?
Yeah.
But the way that the whole story...
she isn't independent.
Yeah.
She has to depend on a man to subsidize her way of life.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, I didn't finish it, but way in the movie when she has that party and they call the cops. Well, before it was really loud. They're playing music. Before the cops came, she'd ordered alcohol. She didn't even have any money to pay for it. She was depending on somebody else to pay for the alcohol. I'm talking about bottles of hard alcohol, maybe wine, champagne, I don't know. I mean, not cheap bottles. And the guy says, you need to pay me. And then she just kind of waves it off, and she starts talking to somebody else, and somebody else had to pay for it. So she's not really independent at all.
Yeah.
It's a facade.
Yeah.
And also her thing where she thinks where it's like she doesn't need anybody, and that because she's, I don't know, she's not a warm person or something. She really does need somebody.
Yeah.
She's just fighting who she really is.
Yeah.
By pretending like she's something she's not.
That's what feminists do.
I don't know, Marco. I'm not going to say, because why don't you just say radical feminists?
No,
okay?
feminists.
I can't really agree with that, but I can agree with radical feminists.
Well, most feminists nowadays are radical.
I know.
99% of them.
What I came from in the 70s.
Well, that's long gone. And so, anyways, as I was trying to say earlier, I think the main issue with this movie, the biggest issue, is the fact that there's a lot of story points that aren't really explained. And there's a lot of things that are not really gone into. Because, Safi was trying to tell me that she didn't think that Holly was a prostitute. And that's because they don't explicitly go into it in the movie. And then Safi doesn't think that she does the drug thing. And that's because they don't explicitly go into it in the movie. And
Not at all.
a lot of this movie, they needed to explain things more, and they needed to make things more clear of what was going on.
Because at the end, they actually come to arrest her and George Papard. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, George Pepper gets arrested.
And they go off to jail, and I'm wondering, like, is this... And then the rancher disappears. You never see him again. He goes on ahead, and he leaves her, he writes her a note, and George Papard has to read it to her. And he says he has to think about his family and his standing in the community or something. I don't know, mainly his family, and that he couldn't be with her because of the drug crap. And like, and I'm like, was it him? Is he escaping because he's the one that had something to do with the drugs? So, and no, Marco thinks it's because of that guy she was going to visit in prison.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have no idea. This is probably another case where I'm going to have to read the book.
No.
Which I don't really want to do.
I don't want to either, because I don't like Truman Capote's writing.
You don't?
No.
I like, you don't like, you did read In Cold Blood, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did.
I don't like his writing.
I read that book, and
I bet you did.
Also, I like The Christmas Story, where he's a little boy and he's with his aunt.
What's that?
Oh, it's a true story. He would go and visit his aunt, and in the summer, or sometime.
Is that the VHS?
No, he lived with them. He lived with his aunt and sisters.
Is that the VHS that we had with the three things on it?
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember that, but I don't.
It's a really good. I love it. It's a really good Christmas story.
I don't like his writing.
It's not just for Christmas, but he has to leave at one point. But his aunt, she's played by a very famous actress, Geraldine Page.
Who's that?
Who it is?
Who's
really
that?
Famous actress.
Well, I don't know her. I don't know her.
It's just really good, and it's a true story. It's autobiographical.
So
anyway, I don't know. I'm still supposed to read that stupid Delicate book, and I'm sorry that I'm saying stupid, but it's so slow and so boring. And compared to what, like, Tony Hillerman and this one woman's, just these short little stories. They're like a little over 200 pages each. They're mysteries.
Safi, are we going to review the movie?
Well, I know, but I mean...
Is that not what we're supposed to be doing now?
No, I'm just debating whether to at least look through the book and try to see what happened with the drugs.
Well, maybe you should, because, they didn't really talk about it in the movie.
Or I just could look it up on Google. I could do that.
So anyways, we should do the food review, because that's, what we're supposed to do. Did you not come up with that?
No. I was thinking about the Goosebumps where we gave it a grade.
That figures. Okay, you're just going to leave it silent now?
Okay. I got it. I just think it's a hot fudge sundae without anything but the fudge, because of the and I guess there'd be whipped cream on it. That would represent her, and the fudge would represent him, because he's George Papard, because he's the strong guy. But it would be missing the nuts and the cherry, which would be plot points, which would help explain. But the movie was very good. It was very solid, I thought. It's just that it kind of left you... It was dangling. Like, the things were left dangling. And I don't know if that was deliberate. You didn't need to do that. I thought they had very solid characters. I don't know about the Mickey Rooney one. I don't think they really needed that.
Well, he didn't really add anything to the movie. Like, I didn't really,
that's why I say he didn't add anything.
I feel like, if you're offended by that, then you should probably find more important things to be offended by.
Well, it's not just that. I just didn't think he added anything to the movie.
That movie was made 1 million years ago, and, You know, the movie was made, and who really cares anyway? But his character was just, he didn't really add anything. He was just.
I thought he was going to be more of an important character.
Yeah, he was just like a comic relief. I was really surprised. Yeah. I was expecting for him to be like a character who would like set her straight or something. Like, near the end of the movie, she would talk with him, and he would all of a sudden be revealed to be like a heartfelt character who had like a sad backstory or something, and then he makes her realize her ways are wrong. Like, he's just like comic relief.
Yeah, he's comic relief.
Which is not really funny, so...
No.
I would be fine with the yellow face if he was funny, but he's not, so... Yeah. So, yeah. I would give the movie Steak, because it's a very manly movie, because it's totally anti-feminist. I mean, that's the whole movie, right, Safi?
Yeah.
And then with Mashed Potato is George Peppered, and the Steak is Holly, because her character is very well done at being, a typical, like, feminazi character. But then there's no vegetable. So, just having steak and potatoes, that's kind of boring. I like to have, like, a vegetable, like asparagus or peas or broccoli, but there's no vegetable, and that represents the plot that is missing, the story stuff that they, for some reason, they couldn't get into, or they just didn't want to. I don't know, because we've seen a lot of stuff from the 60s that's been a lot more, explicit than this, so I don't understand why they couldn't get into that.
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, In Cold Blood, I don't know, in the scheme of things, when that was written, in contrast with this, probably later.
Oh, when was the film made?
But
that was in the 60s too.
It was. That's what I thought. It was
very
thorough.
That was explicit, right?
Yeah, it really went through it.
The movie, like, did they show
so.
did they show blood? Did they show violence, or was it like covered up?
Half and half.
Okay, so they did that. So why couldn't they do it for this?
I don't know.
They can show people getting shot in the head.
It's a crime novel.
They can show people getting shot in the head, but they can't show a prostitute being a prostitute.
I don't know if they show people getting shot in the head.
But that's what happened in the real life.
But there's all kinds of violence. It's just ugly, dark.
Really?
Awful.
Did you feel bad for them, Safi?
No, not at all.
Oh, Truman did. Remember? The movie?
I guess, Marco.
Capote? Was that movie true to life? Did he actually feel sorry for the guy?
I don't know about that. Because I think he was interviewed about it.
Perry?
I don't remember. Who are you asking? Who are you asking about? Truman Capote?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Did he feel bad about it?
In the movie, he was like visiting Perry, and he felt bad for him, and then he even saw his execution.
Ugh.
God. So that's what I was asking.
Well, capital punishment it's
stupid.
It's dubious.
Waste of money.
It's something that either there's such a bad character that it depends on, it's the whole thing, the criminal justice system, not the lawyering and the trials. It's the prison experience. And we're going off on a tangent, but what do you expect when somebody goes to prison? You expect them to be reformed? Well, there's some people, I don't think, because they're mentally ill, they're never going to be reformed. They're going to go back to what they're doing.
Yeah, but it actually costs more money to put somebody to death than to keep somebody in prison for life, which I don't know why people keep on skirting that topic.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
So
That is a very contentious issue with people. So it's like abortion, because it has to do with life
I would
and
say
death.
that Holly Golightly makes the case for abortion, because obviously she should have been aborted.
Oh, Marco, for heaven's sakes! Okay, let's just move on.
It's true.
Please. Okay, no more.
It's true.
Don't do that.
She's a waste of life.
That's terrible. She's
a Cracker Jack girl.
Yeah, I guess that's what you can title the review, The Cracker Jack Girl. The tale of the Cracker Jack girl and the mashed potato guy.
And being reviewed by the food poisoning boy, who will never eat at Wendy's again. Right?
It has to be it, Marco.
I don't know.
Because I had what you had for the meal, and I didn't get sick.
Yeah.
So I ate at home. I didn't eat Wendy's.
So anyways, that's about it. And
That's it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up.
Oh, no. Actually, one last thing is that in recent years, there has been discussion about remaking the movie by a certain actress, and because she really loved the movie, it's her favorite movie. It's the reason why she became an actress, and that is Chloe Moretz.
Really?
She really likes the movie and the book, and
I don't see it.
she would like to be the character.
I don't.
In a remake where it's more like the book.
No.
And I would say
I've met Chloe Moretz, and so have you. No.
Yeah.
No.
I met her, and based on meeting her for 2 seconds after Safi rudely interrupted me, I would say
because they wanted us to leave.
Yeah, but you stood there for like 10 minutes, and
I didn't.
But based on meeting her, she would not fit the character.
No, not at all.
At all.
And I'm not saying that that she's a bad person. She's not. I like her, but she's not right for the role. I don't know if anybody can do the role like Audrey Hepburn.
No. Unless
she's perfect
for
the role.
Who's anorexic? Like, is there any like modern Hollywood actress who's anorexic? Like,
I'm
really
sure
anorexic?
is, but I don't know.
Really anorexic? I can't type and talk at the same time.
I don't know.
Let's see.
I don't think so.
To me, I really feel like she's got to be just as anorexic as Audrey was in this movie. Well, it's funny because you look up modern Hollywood actress anorexic and Audrey Hepburn pops up right underneath the search. I don't know. Rooney Mara, she's a terrible actress, but, she is anorexic. So, I don't know. I don't think so. So, maybe they'd have to, find, like, some, I don't know, random actress who hasn't been discovered yet, and she's just happens to be anorexic. Because I don't see any of them that are anorexic on Google. Do you, Safi? I mean, why did they show a picture of that fat woman from Rose Red? She's not anorexic for sure.
I don't know.
Oh, well, Anya Taylor-Joy's anorexic, that's for damn sure, and she got that terrible plastic surgery that makes herself look like a fish.
Yeah, but I don't know.
She could be the character.
I'm not sure.
Right?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. But that, to me, I think she'd probably be the best for the role.
The character she plays are better.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe.
What about one of the girls from Goosebumps? like Margot? Or Carly Beth Jr.?
No. Mm-mm.
And then they can say in the movie, I am a strong, independent woman. Just like they did on Goosebumps.
God. Okay, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.